Japan and Wales this weekend, folks. Boy, could Wales use a win. They are now officially ranked lower than Japan in 14th spot in the world, having lost last weekend. Japan are in 12th, which in terms of world rankings for the next World Cup puts Japan in a slightly better position because they would be with all the second seeds, teams 7 through 12, whereas Wales at the moment would be a third seed. 18 losses in a row. Wales really need a win. We'll go through the squads which have been announced, some of the predictions, and the stats for this weekend's game in Kobe. And you guys can let us know your thoughts on how this one is going to go. Apologies, my father-in-law is still staying with me at the moment. Guy likes to have a wee drink of some pretty strong spirits in the evening, and I am obliged to drink with him. So this is the having had a drink with the old boy preview for Japan and Wales. Who knows, maybe it'll be better than normal, maybe it'll be a bit incoherent. We'll kind of wait and see. Japan, as I said, they got a win a week ago against Wales. Comeback win as well, because they were like 19-7 points down. And second half really looked the business. I've just checked the weather report for Kobe in Japan, and it's like 34 degrees predicted for the weekend. So you got to feel like the conditions are going to favour the home side, especially as the game wears on. Wales could certainly use a good start, and then if they can hold on to a lead, maybe they put themselves in a position to break this losing run and not quite get to 19 or 20. Now, Eddie Jones has made a few changes. The front row is one change with Tamefusa coming in at tight head. The hooker and loose head are unchanged. The locks are unchanged. Warner Durns and Uloviti are there as well. And then the back row of Leach, Cornelson, and Makisi joins in this week. He's played for Japan before. Seem to remember he's a pretty hard-carrying number 8. Leach was certainly full of tackles last week. The veteran, how many did he have? I did make a note of it. 19 tackles last week from Captain Michael Leach. So he'll be looking to lead from the front once again in that regard. And the backs, they've brought in Saito. Remember, he's playing his rugby over with Toulouse. So he's going to be their premier 9. So to see him back in action is a bit of good news. Singshan Lee, there at 10, he was able to get a few ball carries going last week, as well as his kicking game. And then the midfield of Nakano and Riley continues on. Vailea is on the left wing. He's up for a start this week, having been pretty impressive off the bench last week. I think he busted like 4 tackles in part of Japan's surge towards the second half success. Ishida looked also pretty sharp, set up a try last week on the left. And then Nakakusu, who both got a yellow card and a try last week, is up at fullback. So a few changes from Eddie Jones. The front row replacements are pretty much the same, with Takeuchi dropping to the bench. The other 2 forward replacements of Raratuba and Gunter are still the same. And then there is just a couple of changes on the bench, with Fujiwara dropping to the bench, Green and Ueda coming in. So I feel like it's a relatively stable Japanese lineup. A few bits of tinkering. They'll still be pretty mobile. They'll still be looking to, as I said, push on in the second half, when they'll be looking to make the conditions work to their advantage. Although there were a lot of stoppages last week for water breaks and an extra long half time. For Wales, they have made a number of changes in their search for a win after 18 losses. The front row is still Nicky Smith and Dewey Lake, but Archie Griffin gets a start at tight head this week, and Asarati is nowhere to be seen. I didn't read that he's injured, but he certainly conceded a couple of penalties last week, so maybe that's where the change is made. Freddie Thomas and Teddy Williams is the second row. Remember, there is Ben Carter, who's, I think, returned home already with an injury, unfortunately. Alex Mann was also very busy on the tackle defensive shift last week. Leach was 19, but Mann for Wales was 17, so a big defensive outing from him. Josh McLeod and Aaron Wainwright round out the back row with no Falatau this week, so Wainwright will be expected to take up the burden of all those ball carries, many of which we saw from Falatau last week. Hardy and Edwards is the 19 combo. Nothing against Sam Costello, but I'm pretty happy to see Dan Edwards there. I thought he was going to play last week for sure. I thought they might have gone the All Ospreys 19 combo, but no. But at least Dan Edwards is in at number 10 this week. The dude's got a lot of expectation on him. I don't want to big him up too much because There's obviously deeper issues than just who plays number 10, but Dan Edwards, I feel like, has a better potential, higher, ceiling than some of the other guys who've been playing 10 for Wales. Ben Thomas and Johnny Williams, same in the midfield. Josh Adams and Tom Rogers likewise in them. Blair Murray, lightning guy, was surprisingly quiet last week. 31 run meters for Blair Murray, unusually low. I feel like Wales didn't get as much return out of their backs as they would have liked. Front row replacements of Belcher, Gareth Thomas and Christian Coleman. Coleman will be getting his debut if he comes on, so big congratulations to him. James Ratty and Tame Plumtree, the other forward replacements, alongside Tommy Raffle, who still has to ride the pine in the number 20 jersey, so it's a 6-2 split with Ruben Morgan-Williams, another guy who'll be getting his debut if he comes off the bench. I think good reward for him. And then Keelan Giles, who's been so close to getting his debut for Wales for such a long time now, might actually get it done now that we are here in 2025. I mentioned the backs maybe not getting enough ball. The top carriers for last week for Wales, Faletau, Dewey Lake and Ratty. Where are the backs at? Be nice to get one or two of those guys a bit more into the action from a Welsh perspective. They had 68% possession in the first half, Wales. 55% territory. They had a 19-7 lead. But the second half didn't go well. Japan had 59% of the ball and 53% possession in that half. And then finished the game with 7 clean breaks to Wales' 3. Wales did get a bunch of turnovers, 7-1, but they will need a bit more going forward compared to last week. Predictions-wise, the Japanese are underdogs with the bookies. Wales, despite everything, are still 5-point favourites. That being said, the bookies and the algorithm have got a difference this week. The algo is tipping Japan by 1, if you can call it a tip. It basically just says it's a game that could go either way. But yeah, certainly it's going to be a tough ask. Wales can go back to 12th in the world if they get a win. It would be really, really much needed. Morale must be at an all-time low. So they could certainly use a win. But yeah, Japan will certainly fancy themselves after last week's comeback. And I feel like Eddie Jones's changes are pretty astute ones. I'm going to go because my kids are being loud out there. See what they're up to. You guys let us know your thoughts. And I'll talk to you guys again soon.